One thing that really surprised me was our Scholastic Book Fair this year actually had a table for diversity. And I was able to purchase some books on new immigrants, refugees, as well as the book Red, which is one of my favorite books. Michael Hall has written a kid's picture book about a crayon who comes dressed in a label, which is red, but he's really blue. When I read it to a group of grade 2-3s, one of the kids at the end put up his hand and said, "I think this book is about transgender. I think that crayon's a transgender character." And then another kid says, "Maybe the author's transgender." I'm like, maybe. Like, it was just a neat conversation that I wouldn't have had 5 years ago.
The revised BC curriculum has left a lot of scope for teachers to really personalize for their students and personalize for themselves what it is they're going to teach. There's scope for embracing diversity. There's certainly scope for creating safer classrooms. All of that can be found in the curriculum. So it's really important that more and more examples are introduced in various curriculum areas at age-appropriate levels. And so that becomes normalized in the everyday stories that are told in classrooms, both by teachers and by children, and that this just becomes the norm.
People say that the curriculum is what we teach, but it's also what we leave out. And it sends a message to students when certain things are left out. It's appropriate at all grade levels to talk about both sexual orientation and gender identity, but just in different ways.
I think administrators and teachers in schools can best support students around SOGI issues if they just make it public that they're supportive. And it's really simple. Whether or not that's taking a moment to talk about the history of it, because we know Pink Shirt Day is rooted in a case where there was a gay student who was bullied because he simply wore a pink shirt. Those things need to be talked about in conjunction with SOGI policies.
Talking about things like pronouns, saying, these are the pronouns I use, this is why we're gonna talk about pronouns. Figuring out those clever ways to integrate those things into their lessons. Are you talking about pronouns in your English grammar lesson? Here's a great time to talk about the they pronoun and how it was Merriam-Webster's word of the year in 2016 or 15, and this is how language has changed and evolved and why that's important, right? So just finding those ways to talk about gender when it comes up and to really be leaders for their young people.
Well, I think a lot of students are interested in talking about homophobia or transphobia or LGBTQ2+ politics, because I think in general a lot of students just like current events. I mean, there's a lot of current events around bathroom rights, around other countries in the world where people are being executed or tortured for being queer. Textbooks written a while ago that are used in classes might not be up to date that discuss SOGI-related issues. And I think this is the opportunity that teachers and administrators have, is to bring in current events that are affecting students who might be trans or queer.
I think when we're talking about sexual orientation and gender identity in classrooms and in schools, it's more of how do we treat the subject with as much dignity and respect as we do any other kind of relationship. When we talk about, whether it be kindergarten to grade 7, talking about home life and relationships between, your mom and your dad. Maybe this child has 2 moms and maybe this child has 2 dads. It's the same thing. We're talking about relationships.
The way I approach these topics with early primary students often begins with a book. It starts with a story, for sure. It is in the curriculum for us to talk about family and family diversity, and that's a really natural way to talk about it. And at their age, 6 and 7, they're remarkably open and accepting if that's the tone that is set. So it's actually not as difficult as it seems, I don't think.
Don't be afraid to start with the younger grades. They are definitely ready to learn about, there aren't just 2 boxes, boy and girl, there's everything in between, and there are different types of families, and the kids are old enough to learn about that and to be accepting of each other's differences. Who's in your family?
My dog.
My dog, oh, so cute. A family can be made up in many different ways. Robin's family is made up of her dad, Clifford, and his partner, Henry.
Everybody loves to dress up in different ways. And usually in kindergarten, like right off the bat, The house center and the dress-ups are very popular, and many times I've had children who go and choose dress-ups that aren't stereotypical, and immediately I'm intervening and educating to help everybody be respectful and allow people to choose how they want to dress up and how they want to use their imaginations and how they want to express themselves.
There's people that are boys, there's people that are girls. There are people whose gender might be a little bit of both or might even be neither. All girls like playing with dolls. Is that a stereotype?
Yeah.
Is it true?
No.
No. Boys don't cry.
What?
Girls don't play sports.
What?
That's ridiculous. Of course they do. Being an ally means that you know it takes many colors to make a rainbow. Gender won't decide the choices we make. Some boys like dressing up, some girls like catching snakes.
Students feel sometimes a little nervous because this is quite a new topic. You know, and they're in my class, they're 12 and 13 years old, and they really haven't had this form of education in gender identity. This morning, we have a brand new book in our library called 10,000 Dresses. And we're going to be showing it to you on the screen up there. And my first question is, what do you think the story is about?
That kind of looks like a dude in the dress.
It is.
That could be a girl name. You never know.
I think it's about a guy who wants to wear a dress, but maybe he's not allowed in his school and all he wants to do is wear a dress.
And I was wondering if you would buy me a dress just like that. Bailey, what are you talking about? You're a boy. Boys don't wear dresses. Okay, so we're gonna pause for the middle part, and you can write down some thoughts about how you think the character is feeling.
She's not like being accepted.
Yeah, so Bailey's not feeling sad because no one is listening to her and accepting what she wants to do.
What would you say to Bailey if they wanted to wear a dress to school or they came to school in a dress?
I will tell her that she's not alone and there's probably other people in the school that are transgender or queer. And then I'll tell her that there'll be a GSA club so she can be herself there if she wants to come there.
Going into my practicum, I was quite nervous about how I was going to implement SOGI practices and concepts. So with the grade 11s, we did a slam poetry unit. And I think poetry naturally lends itself to this idea of exploring identity, being vulnerable. And so I had a prompt for students that said something along the lines of, if only he knew that. And I ended up having one of my students who identifies as male write a poem from the perspective of a male in love with another male student.
One big thing that I've tried to take on this year is to teach a queer novel to my grade 9 class, and to not preface it as such. If you've read the book, it takes 2/3 of the book before you finally figure out that one of the characters is gay, and don't find out until the very end that the other one is. And when I was doing it with my students this year, I was just so surprised to see how unfazed they were by it, how this was just, to them, something normal, something that was part of their life quite naturally. I think another big success is within PE. So in looking at the new curriculum, there's explicit language in there, not only for teaching about sex ed and sexual health, but specifically about identity and gender. I've had the pleasure of working with a number of different high schools around the district and their PE departments wanting to learn about what can they do, who can they bring in, how can I support them.
So for a sexual health workshop to be accessible and inclusive, my goal is that everyone listening to the sound of my voice will hear their experience and their identity reflected in the words that I choose, in the examples that I use. They will hear that they are known, that they're seen, that they're important.
It's about finding creative ways, because really queer, trans, two-spirit representation can come up in almost any course as long as you just make a decision to do it and do that inclusive work.
So this is a quote by Adrienne Rich, who is an American poet. When someone with the authority of a teacher describes the world and you are not in it, there is a moment of psychic disequilibrium, as if you looked into a mirror and saw nothing.